Elena Novak sat alone at a small wooden table in the shadowed back room of a cafe perched beside the Voltivor River. The late afternoon sun cast a muted golden glow through the narrow windows, mingling with the faint scent of roasted coffee beans and aged paper that lingered in the air. Her fingers traced the edges of a worn, leather-bound journal she had uncovered days earlier in the secret archives beneath Prague. The manuscript was unlike anything she had ever encountered, a cryptic tapestry of medieval symbols interwoven with arcane ciphers that hinted at a clandestine world buried beneath centuries of history. As she pored over the faded pages, a hesitant voice interrupted her concentration. "Excuse me, are you Elena Novak?" The voice belonged to a young woman whose pale complexion and intense eyes immediately caught Elena's attention. She wore a simple yet elegant coat, her dark hair pulled back to reveal a face marked by both intelligence and guarded reserve. "Yes, I am," Elena replied cautiously, studying the stranger. "And you are?" "Sophia Lang," the woman said, sliding a slim briefcase onto the table. "I specialize in medieval secret societies and their rituals. I've been following your work in the archives. I believe we can help each other." Elena regarded Sophia carefully. Trust was a scarce commodity in her line of work, especially now when shadows moved just beneath the surface of every discovery. Still, the prospect of collaboration was too valuable to dismiss outright. "Very well," Elena said, gesturing to the scattered papers. "Let's see what secrets we can uncover together." Their partnership began in the hushed depths of the secret archives, where shafts of pale daylight filtered through dusty windows, illuminating the yellowed manuscripts sprawled across a heavy oak table. Together, they delved into the labyrinth of symbols, codes, and rituals encoded within the texts. Sophia's expertise in historical context complemented Elena's cryptographic prowess, allowing them to unravel layers of meaning that had confounded scholars for centuries. Hours melted away as they cross-referenced obscure references to ancient rites, clandestine meetings, and the cult's enduring influence on the political landscape. Sophia pointed out subtle variations in iconography that suggested a secret hierarchy within the cult, while Elena identified recurring numerical patterns that hinted at a master code still waiting to be cracked. Despite their progress, an undercurrent of tension simmered beneath their collaboration. One evening, as the city's lights flickered to life beyond the archive's stained glass, Sophia's voice faltered as she revealed a personal truth. "My family has been connected to the cult for generations," she confessed, her gaze dropping to the worn pages before them. "They were keepers of the rituals, guardians of the secrets. It's why I've dedicated my life to uncovering the truth, to break free from the legacy I inherited." Elena absorbed the revelation in silence, the weight of Sophia's confession settling like a shadow between them. The historian's vulnerability was palpable, yet it introduced a new layer of complexity to their alliance. Could she truly trust someone so intimately tied to the very conspiracy they sought to dismantle? As the night deepened, the two women left the archives and found themselves on a narrow bridge overlooking the river, the city's glow reflecting in the water below. The air was cool and carried the faint murmur of distant voices and the soft rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. "We're in this together now," Elena said quietly, breaking the silence. "No matter where it leads." Sophia nodded, her pale eyes glinting with resolve. For the truth, whatever the cost, their pact was forged in the quiet shadows of Prague's ancient heart, a fragile alliance bound by secrets, trust, and the looming specter of betrayal. As they turned back toward the labyrinthine streets, both understood that the path ahead would test not only their intellect and courage, but the very limits of their trust. Despite the progress they had made, the mystery deepened with every uncovered cipher and whispered legend. The cult's reach stretched far beyond the dusty archives, entwining itself with the present in ways neither woman could yet fully grasp. But one thing was certain: the secrets of the past would not remain buried forever, and the cost of unveiling them might demand more than either was prepared to pay. Elena's mind raced with possibilities and dangers as she prepared for the next phase of their investigation. The shadows beneath Prague concealed more than ancient manuscripts. They hid a legacy of power, deception, and betrayal that threatened to engulf them both. Yet in the fragile alliance with Sophia, Elena found a spark of hope, a chance to break the cycle of silence and expose the truth that had long been buried in darkness. As the night deepened and the city breathed around them, Elena felt the weight of the Cipher's secrets settle firmly on her shoulders. The journey was only beginning, and the maze of history and conspiracy awaited them in the depths below. The stakes had never been higher, and the price of failure immeasurable. With a final glance at the glowing skyline, Elena whispered to herself, "We will uncover the truth, no matter what it takes." And with that, she stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face the shadows that lurked beneath the surface of history and human ambition. Beneath the ancient city of Prague, where the cobblestones above whispered stories of centuries past, Elena Novak and Sophia Lang pressed onward into the labyrinthine depths that few had dared to explore. The air grew heavier with each descending step, thick with the scent of damp stone and forgotten secrets. Elena's torch cast long shadows that flickered against the uneven walls, illuminating the narrow corridor as they moved cautiously, their footsteps muffled by layers of dust and time. Sophia's breath came in shallow bursts, eyes wide as she absorbed the oppressive atmosphere. She glanced sideways at Elena, whose sharp eyes scanned every detail, alert to the slightest anomaly. "This place, it feels alive," Sophia whispered, her voice barely piercing the silence that enveloped them. Elena nodded, gripping her torch tighter. "The cult's influence is embedded in these walls. Every corner, every crack tells a story they wanted to bury. But not all stories stay hidden forever." Their path led them to a heavy iron door, its surface etched with intricate symbols that mirrored those found in the manuscripts they had decoded earlier. With a shared glance, they pushed it open, revealing a vaulted chamber that seemed untouched by time. Dust motes floated lazily in the stale air, settling upon piles of ancient manuscripts, tattered tapestries, and artifacts of an ominous nature. Elena approached a low wooden table cluttered with relics, a silver medallion inscribed with cryptic runes, faded parchments stained by age, and a rusted dagger whose blade bore the unmistakable markings of ritual use. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the medallion, tracing the delicate engravings with reverence. These symbols, they're a form of coded language, a cipher within a cipher, she murmured, already piecing together their layered meanings. Sophia leaned over a nearby manuscript, her pale face illuminated by the flickering torchlight. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a series of faded frescoes painted on the chamber's curved walls. The images depicted shadowy figures performing clandestine rituals, their faces obscured by masks resembling ancient beasts. The cult's methods weren't just about secrecy. They were about shaping belief, controlling history through fear and myth. A sudden faint noise echoed from the labyrinth beyond the scrape of stone or the whisper of footsteps. Both women froze, their eyes darting toward the corridor's mouth. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating, reminding them that they were vulnerable here, exposed far beneath the city's bustling streets. "We're not alone," Elena whispered, signaling for Sophia to follow her back toward the exit. As they retraced their steps, the oppressive weight of the past pressed upon them, mingling with the present dangers that shadowed their every move. Outside the chamber, the narrow corridors seemed to close in tighter, the flickering torchlight revealing cryptic markings that only deepened the mystery. Trust between Elena and Sophia felt fragile, strained by the secrets each now harbored, not only about the cult, but about their own pasts and motivations. "We need to share this with Jacob," Elena said finally, breaking the heavy silence. "These artifacts, they prove the cult's influence has never truly faded. It's woven into the fabric of power even today." Sophia nodded, though a shadow crossed her face. "And if we're right, then the danger isn't just historical. It's here, now, and it's watching us." As they emerged from the labyrinth into the cold night air, the city above seemed oblivious to the secrets buried beneath. Yet Elena knew the truth was a ticking time bomb, one that could shatter everything if unleashed too soon. The path ahead was uncertain, riddled with betrayal and peril, but the revelations beneath the surface had steeled her resolve. The shadows of the past were not just stories, they were weapons, and Elena was determined to decipher every last one of them, no matter the cost. But as the night deepened, so did the sense of encroaching menace. Somewhere in the labyrinth, unseen eyes followed their every step, waiting for the moment to strike. Elena's pulse quickened not just from the weight of the secrets uncovered, but from the growing certainty that the line between ally and enemy had never been thinner. The city of Prague held its breath, the secrets beneath its streets stirring from their long slumber. And Elena Novak was now at the heart of a storm that threatened to consume everything she had fought to uncover. The labyrinth was no longer just a place of history, was a battleground where trust was scarce and survival was the ultimate cipher to crack. As she glanced back toward the shadowed entrance of the chamber one last time, Elena knew that what lay beneath the surface was only the beginning. The true challenge was yet to come. The damp air of the secret archives beneath Prague seemed heavier than usual as Elena Novak hunched over an ancient manuscript, the flickering light of her flashlight casting long shadows across the cryptic symbols before her. Every letter, every mark, felt like a key to an unseen door when she was desperate to unlock. Yet, beneath the surface of her focused determination, a disquieting feeling gnawed at her, the unsettling notion that unseen eyes were watching, that every step she took echoed in corridors far beyond her reach. Elena's fingers traced the faded ink of the manuscript, a complex cipher that had consumed countless nights of her life. Tonight, however, was different. She had just uncovered a fragment of a message hinting at a link between the cult and high-ranking political figures. The implications were staggering, but before she could fully grasp the consequences, a sudden noise from the darkened hallway jolted her from her reverie. "Elena," a familiar voice whispered urgently. Jacob Marek emerged from the shadows, his rugged face etched with concern. "We need to talk. Now, it's no longer safe here." The two slipped out of the archives, moving swiftly through the winding streets of Prague until they reached a small, nondescript cafe where the murmur of distant conversations provided cover. Jacob's eyes darted around nervously as he lowered his voice. "Someone we trusted has turned. The information we thought was secure has been leaked. This isn't just a leak, it's a calculated betrayal. Our enemies are one step ahead." Elena's heart pounded. The betrayal cut deeper than any threat. It meant the conspiracy's tendrils reached further than she had feared, perhaps even into her closest circle. "Who?" she demanded, voice barely above a whisper. Jacob hesitated, the weight of his own secrets pressing down. "I don't know for sure. but I've seen signs, messages intercepted, contacts compromised. We need to be cautious. Trust no one blindly." The cafe's warmth felt suddenly stifling, the clink of cups and distant laughter mocking her growing paranoia. Elena felt the familiar walls of isolation close in, yet a spark of defiance flared within her. Back in the labyrinth beneath the city, the shadowy figure responsible for the betrayal moved with practiced stealth. Clad in dark clothing, the betrayer slipped through the maze of corridors, clutching stolen documents that revealed Elena's latest breakthroughs. Each step echoed a cold promise: the conspiracy's secrets would remain buried, no matter the cost. The stolen information soon reached Viktor Kral's operatives, who sprang into action. Elena's safe spaces collapsed rapidly as she found herself targeted by unseen assailants. A sudden ambush forced her to flee the archives in haste, her mind racing to piece together who had turned against her. In the rain-soaked streets of Prague, Elena paused beneath the dim glow of a street lamp, droplets mingling with the sweat on her brow. The betrayal felt like a knife twisting deeper, yet amidst the storm, her resolve crystallized. She would not let this treachery silence her. Instead, it strengthened her determination to expose the conspiracy's dark heart. Her thoughts raced. Who could she trust now? Was Jakub's warning sincere, or was he himself compromised? The lines between friend and foe blurred dangerously, and every shadow seemed to conceal a threat. As the chapter closed, Elena steeled herself for the battles ahead. The labyrinth beneath Prague held many secrets, but none as dangerous as the ones born from betrayal. With the city's ancient stones as silent witnesses, she prepared to confront the darkness inside, and out knowing that the path to truth was now more perilous than ever. The first betrayal was just the beginning, and Elena Novak was ready to fight back. Jakub Marek's voice was low, measured, as he began to recount the shadows of his former life. The safe house they had retreated to was a narrow, dimly lit room tucked away in one of Prague's nondescript neighborhoods, its walls lined with maps and cryptic notes pinned like battle plans for an invisible war. Outside, the city hummed quietly under the veil of night. But inside, the atmosphere was charged with a tension that seemed to thicken with every word Jakub spoke. "There are things I should have told you sooner," Jakub began, his eyes flickering with a mixture of regret and resolve. Elena sat across from him, her posture rigid but attentive, the faint glow of a desk lamp casting sharp shadows across her face. "My missions weren't always clean. There were betrayals within my own agency. People I thought I could trust turned out to be working against us." Elena's heart quickened. She had suspected layers of deception in her investigation, but hearing it confirmed by someone she was trying to trust made the reality all the more harrowing. "What kind of betrayals?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Jakub hesitated, then leaned forward. "Operatives, selling secrets, manipulating outcomes to serve hidden agendas. It wasn't just about intelligence, it was about control and the cult we're chasing. They've infiltrated deeper than anyone imagined." The implications were staggering. Elena's mind raced as she processed the new information, her analytical instincts sharpening even as doubt gnawed at her. Was Jakub himself a double agent? Or was he a man caught in a web too tangled to escape alone? Over the next few hours, Jakub laid bare fragments of his past missions, each tale more unsettling than the last. He produced worn files and faded photographs, evidence of covert operations that skirted the line between patriotism and treachery. Elena pored over the documents, the weight of betrayal pressing down with every detail. Despite the growing unease, an unspoken bond began to form between them. In the quiet moments between revelations, they shared brief, vulnerable exchanges, glances that conveyed more than words could. Jacob's guarded demeanor softened, revealing glimpses of a man burdened by his history but determined to make amends. At one point, they sat down to a sparse meal of bread and cheese, the silence heavy. Elena broke it, her voice tentative. "Why tell me all this now?" Jacob looked up, eyes earnest. "Because if we don't trust each other, we'll never get out of this alive. And because in all this darkness, you're the closest thing I have to an ally." Night deepened outside, and Elena found herself drawn to the window. The labyrinthine streets of Prague stretched below, their twisting paths a mirror of the complexity of the conspiracy she was unraveling. The city held secrets beneath its cobblestones, just as Jacob's past held truths she needed to understand. Could she trust him? The question echoed in her mind, unanswered but unavoidable. Yet as the chill of the night seeped in, a steely determination took root. Together they were stronger, flawed, fragile, but united by a shared purpose. The chapter closed on Elena's silhouette, framed against the window, the city's lights flickering like distant beacons. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and betrayal, but she would face it head-on. The truth demanded nothing less. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the cluttered table as Jacob unfolded another piece of his past. "There was one operation," he whispered, "where everything went wrong. A mole within our ranks fed information to the enemy. We lost agents, and worse, our credibility." Elena's fingers traced the edge of a faded photograph, a group of men in indistinct uniforms, faces blurred by time. "How did you survive?" "By keeping my head down," Jacob replied grimly. "But it cost me alliances. Friends became enemies overnight. I had to leave the agency or be consumed by it." Her trust wavered, but so did her resolve to abandon him. In this murky world, allies were scarce, and enemies wore familiar faces. Their conversations stretched into the early hours, weaving between tactical details and personal confessions. Jacob's stories illuminated the depth of the conspiracy's reach, but also the resilience of those who fought from the shadows. By dawn, Elena felt the fragile threads of trust begin to knit. They were no longer just the cryptographer and the ex-agent. They were comrades in a battle that spanned centuries and blurred the lines between friend and foe. As the first light filtered through the curtains, she knew one thing for certain: Jacob's past was a labyrinth of secrets. But together, they might just find the way out. The narrow cobblestone streets of Prague had grown colder as dusk settled, and Elena Novak wrapped her coat tighter against the biting wind. The city's ancient facades loomed around her like silent sentinels, shadows deepening in the recesses where street lamps failed to reach. She glanced up at the towering spires of the old cathedral, their silhouettes etched starkly against the steel-grey sky. Somewhere within those hallowed walls awaited a man whose knowledge could either illuminate her path or plunge her deeper into darkness. Father Tomas was not the kind of man one found easily. Elena had tracked whispered references to him through dusty tomes and hushed conversations among archivists. A cleric with an unusual interest in the occult, a keeper of forbidden knowledge, long buried beneath layers of dogma and secrecy. When she finally arranged the meeting, she chose a small, neglected chapel on the city's edgier place, where the veil between past and present seemed thin. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, Elena was greeted by a faint rush of cool air, scented with aged incense and melting beeswax. The interior was sparsely furnished: a stone altar, rows of worn wooden pews, and stained glass windows fragmented by cracks, their colors muted in the fading light. The silence was profound, broken only by the echo of her footsteps and the distant tolling of a bell. From the shadows emerged Father Tomas, his gaunt frame draped in threadbare clerical robes. His eyes, deep-set and shadowed, held a solemn weight as though burdened by secrets centuries old. "You seek truths best left undisturbed," he said quietly, his voice gravelly yet steady. "But the past does not yield its shadows without a price." Elena met his gaze, her own eyes sharp despite the weariness etched around them. "I have come too far to turn back now. The Cipher, this conspiracy, it has roots deeper than I imagined." He nodded slowly and motioned her closer to the altar where an ancient manuscript lay beneath a glass case. "These are the rites that bind the cult across ages," he began. "Not mere superstition, but a language of power. Symbols carved in blood and silence." Carefully, he lifted the manuscript, revealing cryptic symbols intertwined with archaic script. The pages appeared fragile, yellowed with time, yet the ink retained a dark vibrancy. Elena's fingers trembled as she traced the characters, recognizing patterns echoing those in the cipher she had been decoding. The connection was undeniably and chilling. "They watch," Father Tomas whispered, eyes darting toward the chapel's shadowed corners. "Always watching." The cult's reach is not confined to these stones. It stretches into the corridors of power, twisting history to its will. Elena felt a shiver that was not entirely due to the cold. "Who can I trust?" He hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Trust is a currency, scarce and costly. But heed this. The truth you seek will make you a target, not just of men, but of the dark legacies they serve." The cryptic nature of his warning only deepened the knot of unease in Elena's stomach. Yet beneath the ambiguity lay a stark urgency. Time was slipping through her fingers, and the labyrinth beneath Prague was not the only maze she had to navigate. She needed allies, but even their faces could mask betrayal. Father Tomas handed her a folded parchment, sealed with a symbol matching one she had seen in the manuscript, twisted Ouroboros entwined with a dagger. "This is a fragment of what I can share. Use it wisely." Elena accepted the parchment, the weight of it heavier than its paper. "Thank you," she said. "I won't forget this." But even as the words left her lips, she knew the path ahead was fraught with peril and deception. As she stepped back out into the night, the chill seemed to deepen. The city's labyrinthine streets stretched before her, cloaked in darkness and secrets. Father Tomas's words echoed in her mind, mingling with the cryptic symbols and half-revealed truths that had become her obsession. Somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched, and the game was far from over. Elena's breath formed misty clouds in the cold air as she walked briskly, her senses heightened. Every rustle of leaves, every distant footstep, set her nerves alight. The stakes had never been higher, and the lines between friend and foe blurred with every passing moment. Yet, with resolve hardening in her chest, she vowed to uncover the full story, no matter the cost. The secrets beneath Prague were awakening, and with each revelation, the danger grew more palpable. But Elena Novak was no stranger to darkness. She would face it head-on, armed with knowledge, courage, and the cryptic warnings that both haunted and guided her through the night.